Good morning, everybody. I want to start you off today by looking at the upper level winds in the atmosphere today. And this particular pattern is going to set up a really very diversified precipitation outlook for the next 7 to 10 days. Most important piece to me right now about this is the way that this shortwave is delivering rain right here to where we're having those wildfires in parts of British Columbia and Alberta. And we're actually going to see more flow bringing storms continually into parts of the Intermountain West. And we're also going to see this really set up the plains for getting more rain after what had already been a pretty stormy weekend, especially down here in parts of Texas. On the southern side of this, I know it doesn't look like much, but we're going to watch lows kind of spin up here in the southeast, maybe more over Florida, and deliver a lot of rain. And then over the top of this, you can just see the flow kind of curling around like this. So that means we leave a large area of the country right in through here with almost no flow at all. And if you don't have good jet stream level flow, and it's still spring, okay, even though we are, I guess now less than a month away from the solstice, okay, this is just the wrong setup to deliver moisture to this area. It's not going to be a wet go of it at all. It's going to be actually very dry into this region. Now, just to show you what it looks like, I'm going to go right to the high-res European model. We're just going to play this out quickly. Over the next few days, if there's a spot for severe weather, it's going to be down here in this region. We're going to watch the next 3 days for storms. Here we are already out there to early Thursday morning, and we can see how much rain is going to fall on that area that has been dealing with, the incredible wildfire activity. This is just so fantastic to see these numbers here. A lot of storms rolling through this part of the country, but just notice, even though there's a weak frontal boundary that's going to try to push through here, nothing. Watch this whole area remain empty all the way through Friday, getting into Saturday and Sunday. We'll just park this out there a week from right now. And we can just see there's going to be a lot of this country that sees nothing, not a drop of rain over the next 7 days. And this has started a lot of conversations. I kind of was asked an email over the weekend about what this means and are there years to compare this to. And I've got a kind of a special briefing later on today, my in-depth briefing, where we're going to talk about that and really just kind of put this in a broader context, because I think this is driving a lot of worry right now. So there it is. That's your next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. And again, the action's really in 3 areas. One is here. The second will be the storms there and these lows that are curling up over the south and kind of bringing in some heavy rains, possibly Georgia, Florida, and along the Carolina coast. All right. So from here, I do want to show you the satellite animation from this morning. Do you see the angle right here on this day-night line, right? This is where the sun is up, and this is where they're still using infrared imagery because it's still nighttime. This is almost at its peak angle. So this just tells us we're about a month out from the solstice. You can see here, this is all wildfire smoke in this area. And yesterday, if I just take you back, as we were watching severe storms come into parts of Oregon and Idaho and very big storms that kind of throughout the Intermountain West, all of this was wildfire smoke in this area. And we also saw some very large storms down into Texas last night, just as the sun was setting here, producing some very, very heavy rain. To show you that rain, this is the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation. And the front that swept through parts of the Eastern Corn Belt, in my opinion, did outperform. It was great to see this rain getting into Indiana, into Ohio, parts of Michigan, into Pennsylvania, New York, where we needed it. Same thing for Western Kentucky, Western Tennessee. This was an area that had missed out on a lot of recent precipitation, so I like to see that. You can also see what came into southern Kansas, Oklahoma. This was kind of an important weekend for rain. And also here the system that tried to track along the Carolina coast. A lot of strong storms, though, here in parts of the Pacific Northwest, and just scattered storms throughout parts of like the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada mountains down into Arizona as well. But this is an area that didn't get rain this weekend and is not expected to see any for quite some time. So I want to show you why again. So this is just an animation of upper level winds. This is now at the jet stream level. I started you off today in the mid levels of the atmosphere where the pressure is 500 millibars, or half what it is at the surface. This is going up there to where the pressure is now a third of what it is at the surface, or about 30% honestly. So the 300 millibar winds. And if I just play this forward, if you're in this region, just watch how you won't see color coming through there. And the reason for that is the wind is just so very weak in the upper levels and split all around the United States. Now you notice these little features kind of curling up right down here. We're going to keep an eye on what they're going to do to the southeast, to the Carolinas. But when do we start to bring better flow back into the midsection of the country? It will not be in the month of May. We're going to have to wait for that, possibly later into the first week of the month of June. Okay, so let's distill all this down into a couple of maps. This is the next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation from the Weather Prediction Center, WPC. All right, and we notice that there are some places that are going to be completely dry over that time period. Another way to look at it is, what is this compared to normal? Let's stretch it out to 10 days. So this is the 10-day European model precipitation anomaly figure. And now you can start to identify those wet regions, continue to try to bust a drought down here in the southern plains, but we're going to see things go quite dry into this area. And there's a lot of growers in here who are going to see this and get quite concerned, because over the last 30 days, you do note that there's several areas into here that are looking at, between 30 and 70% of their normal precipitation. And so this is just a region that folks are going to be, watching for the dryness. We've been dry along the Pacific Northwest kind of I-5 corridor and dry into the interior here of the Great Basin. We're going to see some storms rolling through there. But a lot of folks right in this area are just going to be watching for when this pattern is going to break. And we're going to be discussing that in my in-depth report later on this afternoon. The third map, to distill this down, this is looking at the temperature pattern. So where there's cloud cover and rain, we expect it to be cooler than normal, but some very hot conditions are going to come out of, for example, from today in Montana and spread throughout the week here into parts of the northern plains, getting into the Midwest. Temperatures in the 90s, and so that's going to really start to change our evaporation rates, which I'll also show you in a few moments. Last map to kind of distill this down, though, this is the probability of getting less than 1/10 of an inch over the next 7 days. So where you see the colors, these are our driest areas. So there's over a 90% chance that along the Mississippi and getting here into the Great Lakes Basin that we will not measure any rainfall during this time period. Here's the probability of getting less than 1/2 inch, and let's stretch this out to be a bit longer time period. How about 10 days? And then if you're wanting to know who's wet, let's go look at the probability of getting over 1 inch. So it's here, it is there, and then in the middle, we're going to watch this area very carefully. That is, this we could start to talk about being the beginning of busting a drought. It's going to take a whole lot more than this, but there it is. Now, to show you another map I'm watching carefully, with the heat that's coming into this region, the evaporation rates here in parts of the upper Midwest, the northern plains, and the Midwest are going to be getting up there between 1.5 inches and approaching 2 inches. It's very common for these numbers to be this high down here in the desert Southwest, but to see them be that high here tells us we do have some heat that's coming into that area. So let's use our models to kind of see the timing of the precipitation and when we can see a break from this. So playing through the day on Tuesday, look at this. Need this so badly. Heavy rains in Alabama, parts of southern Georgia as well. And you're just going to see daily chances for storms coming out of the mountains, along right in through here, very wet area. In fact, did you see that a moment ago? How wet it's been in Colorado right in through here. And we do continue to see the models tossing up storms on the Front Range down here in the southern plains. This is Tuesday evening. Playing through Wednesday. That's Wednesday evening. Let's go through the overnight hours and stop it here on Thursday evening. Just see every day chances of storms while this low tries to curl up the East Coast here. We then get into Friday. Let's pause it on Friday evening. And going out there into Saturday evening. We're just watching for the daily storms to pop. Now remember, late in the week, we're going to watch that low form right here. And both models are trying to deliver a lot of rain into parts of the Carolinas, really more North Carolina and Virginia. And over the last month or so, it's been very dry in this part of North Carolina and to South Carolina, And so this rain would be welcomed later this weekend. But just playing out there into early next week, you see the same thing. Storms, lows curling up. Nothing in the middle. So just want to make a point that we're in this pattern now for the next 10 days or so. What about week 2? Well, could we see some evolution of this pattern? We will be watching for it, but not for most of next week. It's going to be at the end of next week. I think the change is going to be coming in terms of the precipitation pattern. So again, we see more of that drought busting activity here, which I love to see, but we need to get this moisture to keep moving. In this afternoon's video, I will show you where we've had frost lately, but right now, the next 7 days, this is where we've got the risk of frost to be. So here, tucked away in the UP of Michigan and northern parts of lower Michigan and the interior of New England, all of this is at high elevation in the west. Next 7 days, looking at GDDs, this is what we're going to be picking up. So notice these numbers are now up here almost to 150. That tells you where that heat is going to be coming into this section of the country. But these numbers down here, these are low compared to what they can get this time of year. So we'll watch that carefully as well. To show you the high temperatures, let's just start off today, 90s in Montana. Cooler where it's rainy. And as we play this forward, look at the temperatures getting knocked back in the Pacific Northwest after just what was on pace for a record-setting warmth, especially in certain climate reporting districts here for the Pacific Northwest. But now that heat opens into the midsection of the country with highs in the mid to upper 80s. Let me see here. There's Wednesday's temperatures getting into Thursday. There's a little front that sneaks through here, so bringing in some colder conditions into New England. And let's go out there to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So the jet stream pattern is doing this. And in the middle, that's where we miss everything. All right. Temperatures, longer range, 5-day sliding window of average temperature anomalies. We just ran this quickly out today, 5 through 10. You just continue to see cooler south, warmer north. And as we talked about last week, this type of precipitation pattern drives a very slow and weak jet stream. You got to have high temperature contrast. We don't have that, remember, because normally temperatures decrease as you go north. We're now saying the temperatures in the north are going to be warmer than average, while in the south they're cooler than average. If you want to get a screaming jet, flip this, bring the cold here and the heat south, and then the jet stream goes. So this is something that's got to go away. As we play this out there today, 10 through 15, we park it right out here. The first 5 days of the month of June, we kind of continue to see that pattern setting up. Okay, last couple things. South America. We have what is going to be a very warm week this week, and then we flip over cold next week into Argentina. Big cold front's coming through, and that cold front's going to be critical to watch because of this. The newest 10-day outlook on precipitation anomalies tries to bring moisture right into this area, and that's a big area where we've got some safrinha crop planted, like Mato Grosso do Sul. If this comes through and hits Paraná a little bit, or hits Sao Paulo, comes over here and hits Goiás, this is going to just cap off this crop. Now, this is not in the near term. This is late in the 10-day time period, but that would be critical to this area, so keep an eye on that. And finally, for tonight, when you watch my long-range update, we're going to talk about these ocean temperatures. What's going on with the PDO and El Nino, why and what is driving these warm ocean temperatures here in the Atlantic and what it means for later. And then because I'm getting asked, I got asked repeatedly this weekend, is 2012 an analog? We will talk about that because this is what ocean temperatures look like May of 2012. We're also going to talk about this. Our longer range models have been, especially the European model, has been just very dry, I think, due to initialization issues. But over the weekend, a trend in another model I consult, the CFSV2, it has said that you go into that June 4th through 10th time period, and it's bringing the moisture back into this region. And then you look in there to mid-June, and we've got it in here as well. So there's going to be some discussion because, as I said at the beginning, there's a lot of folks in here wondering when the rain's going to return. So we need to have a talk about it. We'll do that this afternoon. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Thanks.